The pandemic has created an environment in which the collective goal of surviving has really strengthened the concept of team. In many ways, it has become easier to manage because people are all in the same proverbial boat, together rowing in the same direction. And most importantly, we've become much more acutely aware of the critical importance of providing the absolute best possible care to the crew members who we serve. As our company mantra states, it is always about the crew.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to the 152nd episode of the Shipping Podcast. As you know, I am all for questioning status quo and a proponent of digitalization. So when I heard about a service that offers a digital platform for international corporate and crew payments instead of cash on board, I became curious and wanted to know more. In this episode, you will meet the president and founder of ShipMoney, Stuart Ostrow, who I interviewed earlier this month via the video tool Zoom. He was in Florida and I am in Sweden. Stuart talks about his background as a CPA, and I had to look that up. That is a certified public accountant, a trusted financial advisor who helps individuals, businesses, and other organizations plan and reach their financial goals. I think that sort of sums it up. No one can be surprised over Stuart's endeavor as an entrepreneur. I hope you will enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Stuart Ostrow, and I'm the president of ShipMoney.
What is your background?
I'm a CPA by professional training, having graduated college and went to work for a big six accounting firm for several years. And then I went into private practice and ultimately executive management running a company. But I was always in my heart an entrepreneur, a frustrated entrepreneur, as many CPAs are. And many years ago, I had read a business plan, and I always like to say it was an interesting idea, but a poorly written plan that talked about prepaid and the emergence of prepaid in the card space. There is credit, which has been around for 50 years. There is debit, which has been around for 20 years. And at the time, there was this third leg being introduced by Visa and MasterCard called prepaid. And there were many applications to prepaid gift cards, prepaid incentive programs, prepaid rebates. And I began to do some research because it piqued my interest. And I realized that there was a potential tremendous opportunity. So I wrote a business plan. I raised some friends and family capital, and voila, I was in business. And the initial thrust of the program was actually for insurance payments, specialized insurance payments to seniors. And it was mildly successful, centering on trying to find a niche for the electronic distribution of payments. And through a college friend, I was introduced to a company called Maritime Telecommunications Network, which was at the time the largest SATCOM provider to the cruise line industry worldwide. They essentially had a monopoly on those services. And they had a problem with their internet cafe managers. They had a few of them that they brought overseas. They brought from overseas. They trained them in their offices. They put them out in the ships to manage that business for them. And they had problems paying them. After 9/11, it became more and more difficult to open up traditional bank accounts for foreign nationals. So through this college friend, I was introduced to MTN, and I said, I've got this prepaid payroll card program, and here's how it works. And basically, you can issue cards instantaneously, you can pay them instantaneously, and it's just like a bank account, only better. And I said, oh, this is great. They introduced it to their cafe managers, and it was quite successful. And they came to me and said, well, why don't we do this for the cruise line industry? And the light bulb went off in my head. And as I began to look at it, I realized that it was the perfect vertical opportunity to pursue a program like this, because you had tens of thousands, 100, 200,000 individuals who were all foreign nationals. And traditionally, the cruise line industry paid its crew members in cash, which is pretty remarkable when you explain it to individuals. A Brinks truck would back up to a cruise ship once a month. $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.3 million in cash would be delivered onto the ship. The two crew purser and a couple folks would spend the entire night breaking out that money into envelopes. And the next day or next couple of days, people would stand in line and get paid. And the entire industry paid its individuals in cash, several billions of dollars. So you couldn't find a more perfect application in which you could introduce a prepaid payroll card program. And the key to the success of this program was through a colleague. At the time, he had worked for Regent Cruise Lines. And at the time, Regent Cruise Lines was using Travelex to initiate wire payments for its crew members. It's a high-end cruise line, and basically they provided a service to send money home on behalf of their crew members. And again, the CPA mind kicked in, and I said, oh, this is interesting. If I could take that wire service and connect it to a payroll card and introduce it to crew members on the cruise ships, we would have something. We would have solved the solution in terms of providing a mechanism for the companies to pay their crew members electronically instead of cash, and providing a mechanism for those individuals, once they got paid, to send money home. So we approached Travelex, and I said, I've got this idea. And they bought into it. And they said, oh, that's a great idea. And we were the first company in the world to ever introduce an integrated wire service into a payroll card program. And I remember where I was standing, actually, when the first wire happened. I was actually at MTN offices, and I got a notification that somebody sent a wire. And I was like, okay, this works. Somebody got paid. They logged into their account, and they send money home. And the next day, there were two wires. And I knew we were in business. We fundamentally solved the problem in that industry. And over time, that business grew. I had MTN as a client, and then I got Steiner Leisure, which was the spa operator in the cruise line industry, staff on about 180 vessels, something on that order back then. And that really opened up the door to the entire industry because they served the entire industry. And ultimately, we landed Norwegian Cruise Lines as a client. It was the first major cruise line to ever introduce any of these programs. And that set the stage for the entire industry to adopt it. But as that business was evolving, it was brought to my attention the other side of the industry, the larger side, which was the commercial shipping industry. And the commercial industry has the same fundamental problems. How do you pay crew members? Except in that industry, it's that much more difficult because you don't have 1,000 people on a ship. You have 20 people on a ship. And those ships are all over the world. And they come from all over the world. They come from the same locations as individuals from the cruise industry. So the commercial industry evolved to paying its crew members partly in cash via cash to master and partly via sending a wire payment home. And it was a realization to go, wow, we could take the success that we've had in the cruise industry and apply it to the commercial industry. And ultimately, that is where we are today. And we are having quite a good success in penetrating that market.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
With that. How long did this take? To me, it sounds like 10 years. How long have you been?
Well, that's a good question. I think there's an old saying that it was an overnight success after 10 years. Probably longer than that. In fact, we just landed a very substantial client, Maersk. We signed the agreement this past week. And that client took at least 10 years to close from the first time we ever met them in the Isle of Man. So I think my first business was started probably about 15 years ago, and I sold the portfolio. I went to work for them for about 2.5 years. I was very fortunate to have not signed a non-compete, took everything that I had learned and applied it to ShipMoney. And now we are well on our way. And in fact, to some extent, we compete with my old company on some level.
How did you find the maritime industry once you met them?
It was interesting, to say the least. The cruise industry is quite friendly. It's easy to connect to people, especially being here in South Florida, because it's a small industry and individuals move from company to company. They know individuals at other companies. And once I landed that first large client, Steiner, it was not that difficult to penetrate the industry. The commercial industry is vastly different. It is all over the world. You have individuals of different cultures, of different backgrounds. It's an older industry. It's very set in its ways. It takes a long time to adopt new technologies. And one of the interesting observations that I've made is when we go into an office or when we engage in a client, the first question is, are there captains involved on the executive side? And I've always found that captains sometimes are more difficult to sell to convince to, because they like to be in control. They are absolutely in command, whether it be on a ship or in their office. And they don't respond well to traditional, let's say, sales techniques. Not all of them, but a lot of them. It was a very interesting challenge sometimes in terms of selling to them. And I remember once I was meeting with a gentleman. He was a captain with TK. And he was this big burly guy. He had hands like I would think of like Santa Claus. And he was sitting at the head of the table, and he had this burly hands on his belly. And he was just nodding as we were talking. And something I said basically changed the paradigm in that particular meeting. And he unhooked his hands. He leaned forward, and basically he opened himself up physically to my conversation. And I knew at that point I connected with him. But it is definitely an interesting industry, to say the least.
But you never meet a dull person. They're all characters.
They are all absolutely characters. And what, the challenge sometimes is dealing with those characters, especially with cultural differences, dealing with Germans or dealing with Europeans or dealing with Asians. And the way in which you interact, the way in which you sell to them, the way in which you manage them really has to be adapted to the culture and to their personalities. And that is a challenge from an organizational standpoint as well.
Yeah, but that is also the fun part, isn't it?
It is. And the opportunity to interact with people on a daily basis from all over the world, I find incredibly fun. Every single day, for example, I'm talking to you. You are based in
Sweden.
Somewhere else.
Yeah.
Sweden, exactly. And earlier today, I was on the phone with somebody in London. And a little bit later, I'm going to speak with somebody in Singapore. And it goes on and on and on. And that is definitely the fun part. The world, it's not as small as some people think it is.
But you have spent 15 years more or less in the maritime industry. Have you seen some changes?
Yes, tremendous changes. I think we haven't gotten to the whole pandemic COVID, impact on lives and on business. But I definitely believe that this seminal event has opened up the industry to looking at ways in which they can really help out their crew members and seafarers to whatever extent possible, as well as looking at ways to become more efficient and adapt to the world around them. And that's a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, I agree with you. I started to think about this when preparing for our little chat here. And then I thought, yeah, in my usual everyday life, I use, credit card or payment debit card or whatever. So why wouldn't I want to do that if I was on board a ship somewhere?
Well, it does beg the question. Part of the industry is providing cash to master. Cash is delivered to the ship, and that cash serves two purposes. It provides cash advances to crew members if they so choose to get part of their pay in cash. And it also provides cash for the captain for supplies, vendor payments, provisions, et cetera. Well, when was the last time you used cash to pay for something?
Yeah, last year, I think, 2 years ago.
And that certainly has changed given what's going on with COVID. There were early conversations that cash itself could actually transmit the disease. So whether that is actually factual or not, but it really gets us thinking, is this the thing that finally gets the industry to move away from cash? And there are billions of dollars of cash that are distributed to the commercial industry worldwide. If you take the number of ships that are out there, whatever that number is, 50,000 ships, and you say on average $20,000 a month or $20,000 every couple of months is delivered to the ships, there are billions of dollars that are added that are sent out to those ships. And is that gone away? Is COVID basically going to finally take this away? I don't believe cash will ever not exist in society, I think when a crew member gets off of a ship, when he can get off a ship, the first thing he wants to do is probably eat something because he's sick of the ship food. So he goes to the food cart in the port and eats something. Well, that's a cash transaction. But once he leaves there and he goes to the store, a high likelihood that you can make an electronic payment at that store. Or if you're fortunate enough to be able to leave the port and go somewhere else, you're going to be able to use a card payment or transiting to the airport or traveling or whatnot. And that is sort of the thrust of what we were trying to push out there.
But going back to the pandemic, are there people enough? I mean, I think I hear a lot about decreasing the human touch in the logistical chain. So, I mean, is the guy there on the port side waiting for the ship with his money, or is he at home sick with the coronavirus?
There's an interesting observation. I brought this up at a webinar that I recently participated in, and the industry talks about all the crew members that are stuck on board and the repatriation issues and individuals that are unfortunately being extended beyond their contract terms or whatnot. What is not talked about are the individuals that are at home, that are unemployed, that are suffering, that need to and want to work, but they can't get to the ship. So whatever that number is, 200,000, 300,000 seafarers, it's an enormous number of individuals that are stuck on board, but nobody talks about the individuals that are stuck at home. I wanted to read something to you. I wrote this actually for a questionnaire for a publication that's coming out shortly. And I thought it's a really poignant, interesting comment that I made, and I think this is applicable to all of us. The question was, what are the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on your company's activities? And I'm going to read this to you. I wrote, from a business cultural standpoint, the pandemic has been incredibly beneficial by bringing the organization closer and connected in many ways. On Zoom calls, we share personal stories. We laugh, we cry, we dream. We complain and commiserate. Dogs bark and doors knock. Beards are growing really long. Things that were unimaginable in a business setting or a call pre-COVID are now completely natural. We've become more real and human beings, and that's a very good thing. It's really a remarkable transformation in terms of being more cohesive and focused as a group. The pandemic has created an environment in which the collective goal of surviving has really strengthened the concept of team. In many ways, it has become easier to manage because people are all in the same proverbial boat, together rowing in the same direction. And most importantly, we've become much more acutely aware of the critical importance of providing the absolute best possible care to the crew members who we serve. As our company mantra states, it is always about the crew. I've read this numerous times to myself as on a daily basis as we engage in our business. And here I'm sitting in my home office. I haven't shaved in a couple of days. I had to close the window because the gardener is out there blowing the leaves. But it's completely natural. And if you think about this a year ago, we would be in an office, I would be wearing a suit, and we would be stiff in our body armor. And one of the, I think, positive things about all of this is we've become more connected as human beings. We've become more sympathetic. We've become hopefully more caring. And I think that hopefully will carry for a long, long time.
Amen to that. I agree with you. So how do you see the future? I mean, where are we going from here? I'm thinking more about currency, maybe cryptocurrency and blockchain or things like that.
I'm laughing. I'm going to go back to the captain at TK's offices when I'm sitting there and he's, got his hands crossed across his chest. And the idea of cryptocurrency would be, talking about something that's so far out there. Small steps. Right now, the industry is dealing with, an incredible crisis at a human level, and that being the seafarers. There are a lot of conversations out there, and there are a number of initiatives with regard to using blockchain, not on the payment side of the industry, but with regard to the documentation, especially on the container side of the world. And I, as I understand some of these initiatives and the idea behind blockchain, it is a potentially a game changer in terms of getting rid of some of the paperwork and creating much more efficient ways in which containers can transit through the logistic chains of the world. But on the payment side, we're a long way away from that in the industry.
I mean, you must be able to trace and track what people are using their cards to buy. So data is the new oil, as people say. So how do you do that?
We do. And we do because we own and operate our own platform. Everything that a crew member touches with regard to his app or his online application, and everything that a client touches, all the APIs, all the systems, we own and operate ourselves. Our parent company is a Visa MasterCard payment processor, and that system is used by about 80 banks in 30-some countries. And what that allows us to do basically is to analyze data, and we do look at it on a regular basis. It is really interesting, actually, to dig in and look at utilization patterns. In fact, sometimes we share those with clients and say, hey, listen, here is where people are spending their money. Grocery stores, beauty salons, shopping stores. They go online, they buy from Amazon, they buy subscriptions. Literally thousands and thousands of MCC codes, merchant category codes, all over the world. We always have to be obviously very, very careful from a privacy standpoint because that information is highly proprietary. And when I look at it, all of that privacy data is always stripped out. I'm only able to look at data at a certain level. But it is quite interesting, and it actually allows us to take that information and use it in terms of communicating back to individuals, groups of individuals, as well as clients, both for marketing purposes as well as for client management purposes. I was sitting in a meeting in Cyprus at a very large ship management company, and we were having a good conversation. They were very, very interested. In fact, ultimately, we signed them as a client, and I won't name who they are, but they're a top 10 ship management company. And we were looking at this information. This MCC codes are merchant category codes. And if you go to a gas station, the gas station will show up as a certain category code and it'll say gas station. And Visa MasterCard have a standardized list of merchant category codes for a variety of purposes. So we're flipping through them and I see Grindr. And I don't know if you know what Grindr is, but Grindr is a dating site for men. And we looked down, and it was a realization, all three of us in the meeting go, oh, there's about 20 transactions of Grindr. And we looked at it and we started laughing and go, not that there's anything wrong with it, but see, they're using ShipMoney for whatever they want to use it for. So it was a really, it was a pretty funny revelation, let's say, in terms of looking at that particular data set.
I can understand that.
Absolutely.
So there's one question I have to ask you. What about cybersecurity? That is on everyone's mind at the moment.
There's two levels to this. There's security relative to the individual, the crew member, the account holder, the card holder. And then there is security relative to our core system. We have an entire team of individuals, security individuals, network individuals, who 24 hours a day basically are protecting and securing that system. And I don't understand it. I probably have a very limited knowledge in terms of all of the security protocols. But I do know that system is used by about 80 banks in 30 different countries. So because of the PCI, the nature of the data that's in that database, card information, the demographic information, et cetera, that it has to have the highest level of security available in the world. Obviously, and that is, as one of the guys once said to me, he goes, literally 24 hours a day, people are trying to get inside. And fortunately, it has never been breached. There's a number of layered security that are built into it. And of course, we are very overly insured, let's just say, for a variety of events, including cybersecurity, et cetera. On the cardholder side, we've experienced and seen over the past years fraud. It could be one of the things that happens on cruise ships is friends try and scam the system. And we've developed what we believe is the strongest suite of security protocols of any program, we believe, not just in maritime. In fact, we just introduced about a month ago or so one more piece to it, which was device registration. Basically, in order to use your mobile app, you have to register the device. We also developed OTP, one-time passwords built into our system, which is a unique application. So for instance, if you log in and you want to add a beneficiary to a bank account, a 6-digit one-time password will actually be sent to your phone or to your email address in order to effectuate that. So an individual can't claim, well, somebody logged into my account, because if somebody logged into your account, well, they also had access to your phone or they had access to your email. So we've developed a series of security protocols to protect those cardholders. And it has brought our fraud virtually to zero, which is a unique statement given we have cardholders in 100 and something countries all over the world. It's something that we take very, very seriously. One of the things we know is folks out there are working really, really hard, and every dollar matters to them. So we put our money where our mouth is in terms of putting in the protections to help them.
I have a question that I ask every guest on my show. What can we do to improve our profile as the maritime industry? How can we become more visible? We are usually called the Cinderella industry because no one knows about us.
I don't know if you saw, I think it was last week, there was an article that was written that was actually a request to Jeff Bezos, requesting that he help telegraph and communicate the plight of seafarers right now. And that I don't know if you'd seen that or not. It really, really struck me.
Yeah.
I sometimes talk to my mom, my 85-year-old mother, and I say, Mom, the clothes you're wearing or the food you're eating or your refrigerator, a good chunk of it came on a ship. And she's always surprised to go, I never really thought about it. I go, that's exactly right. You order something and it shows up at your door, but you never think about, well, how did it get there and where did it come from? And I don't think that the industry itself has done a good job of communicating outside of this industry what those seafarers are really doing. Even today, given the pandemic and COVID and the issues of crew members being stuck on board, we're in this industry, so we see it every single day. I don't know if the people who are not in this industry are aware of it. And, I think that we collectively just need to do a better job. I'm going to throw a name out there, which I'm sure you all know, Frank Coles, the CEO of Wallem. I give all the credit in the world to Frank because he is one of the individuals out there who is really pushing this issue. Now he's in Hong Kong, but he is a voice of this industry in terms of trying to get the greater world to understand we have a humanitarian crisis. I know that the IMO has been involved, but the governments of the world, and certainly my government, I haven't seen any action from them or any words or anything with regard to helping the crisis. So I do my little part every day when I talk to individuals in the company, when I talk to individuals outside of the company, whatever it may be, in terms of trying to ring this bell to say, hey, listen, there's individuals out there that have been stuck on board ships for a year and a half. And basically, they're being held captive because they can't get off the ship to go home. And there's individuals, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals that are basically destitute right now because they can't get to work and they want to work. So, it's up to us, Lena. It's up to all of us.
I know. That is why I'm asking everyone. How should we do it? Because it's very important. So who would you be interested in listening to in my podcast? Who do you think I should invite the next time?
Frank. If you and
maybe I should.
Maybe you absolutely should. I think that Captain Kuba from Intermanager, he speaks from the heart a lot. I think he really has the seafarers truly in his intentions. So he's probably would be a wonderful person, and he's a good spokesman for the industry. Mark O'Neill, the CEO of Columbia Ship Management, was just named President of Intermanager, and he's a wonderful advocate and speaker, not only on behalf of his company, but I think the greater industry.
Yeah, I agree. 3 good names.
Yes.
I will see what I can do.
I would be in heady company if you were to get them to join as well. But I think collectively, the magazines, which have a broad reach, would also probably be a good source in terms of trying to telegraph to the bigger picture, to the outside world, problems that are happening in this industry. I wonder as we head into the holiday season, everybody's going to shop online, and to what extent that is going to stress the logistics chains in the world. And when people order something that doesn't show up for Christmas and they wonder why, maybe that is the thing that will help create this bigger problem. Our government, the United States government really needs to step up and help solve the problem for the seafarers. And we just haven't.
In a way, we are not doing any good for ourselves because the seafarers are delivering.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't that disruption that everyone was thinking about at the beginning of the pandemic.
That is very true.
It just continued.
It is sometimes I feel like, I don't know, a guy with a baseball bat beating people over the head, not in a bad way, but in a good way in terms of taking care of our seafarers, which are our clients or employees of our clients, but they are really who we serve. And it is stressed every single day to go out of your way to help them. And I pride myself on the service that we provide to our clients and to our crew members, because we don't exist without them. We don't exist as an organization, and we don't exist as human beings. And every single person in my company knows that. They hear it every single day.
Yeah. We need to speak to people who doesn't know anything about us.
Yes, like my mother.
Because they are, like your mother, like my friends.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while I got so fed up sitting at dinner parties and having to explain what the shipping industry is all about. And then I started a podcast because then I thought, well, everyone else can listen to this song as well.
Well, one voice, 2 voices, 10 voices, 1,000 voices. And hopefully those voices will be heard. Or we get a vaccination and, this thing hopefully goes away sometime in the next year or 2, and maybe things change and things don't change. I do believe, I really believe that the industry itself has realized how important seafarers are. One of the fundamental things is communications. And if you go back in time a year, 2 years ago, companies were reluctant to make the investment in terms of SATCOM. And if they did make the investment, they would they would limit the bandwidth or the accessibility or charge the crew members or whatnot. And I think that the industry realized, wow, we have these individuals stuck on board. Not only are they stuck on board, but they can't reach their parent. They can't reach their family members. So I think that the idea of crew welfare, at least as it relates to SATCOM, is never going back. And I think that's a really, really good thing for the seafarers. I mean, if you're going to be working on board, at least give them the ability basically to communicate with their family members. And you see out there other companies taking initiatives in terms of other crew welfare, better food, help lines for mental health, better equipment, exercise equipment, whatever it may be. One of the ways in which we introduce ShipMoney is it can really be introduced as a crew welfare benefit, because there's services that those individuals can access that they can't really access right now. The ability basically to send money from a ship from a phone via mobile Western Union or MoneyGram or Transfast or some of our other providers to do mobile top-ups that they really can't do right now. And so we believe that our company, our program, also helps those seafarers directly as well.
Thank you, Stuart, for taking the time to speak to me. Thank you, Stuart. I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed our conversation. It was good fun. You speak so passionate about the seafarers, and I want to add to that. I think it's important to help spreading the word about the seafarers being key workers. The International Chamber of Shipping, ICS, has launched a campaign called Seafarers Delivering Christmas, which also is a hashtag on social media. The tagline is, "Together we can make Christmas 2020 and other social festivities special." I will put a link in the show notes of this episode to the ICS website where you can read more about how you can contribute. but I will read the justification for the campaign to you. During the current pandemic, the seafarer welfare organizations have worked incredibly hard to support our seafarers. This has caused an extra financial burden and depleted stocks of goods normally distributed over the festive period. No matter if you are a company, family, friend, or union, seafarers need your help. You can, for example, donate potential gifts or money, provide a 10-minute free phone call, or organize festive activities and more. Please visit the website. Whilst I've been preparing for this episode, I have also received messages from seafarers who are or has been stranded, asking if I can speak up for them. Of course I can. I would like to make a special episode with seafarers, sharing their stories and highlighting the problem of them not being able to travel home or to their workplace. So, if you are a seafarer, please send me an email at hello@shippingpodcast.com. In order for you to participate and be a part of an episode, you need good connectivity, so we can connect via the video app Zoom. So you need also a device to upload either the app on your mobile or your personal computer. And you need a headset of some kind. That could be a mobile headset, no problem. But you also need a quiet space. If you don't want your voice to be recognized, I can understand that. And I'm able to scramble it so you will not be recognized. That is not a problem. Together we can figure it out. I will be waiting for your email. I would also like to take this opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas. I know it will be different for all of us. Stay safe and try to enjoy the small things in life. So until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.